All right, thanks, Hillary. Election day is here, and for those of you casting your ballot today, we wanted to simplify the candidates for you. For the last few days, Google Trends has been able to show us what everyone is talking about in Tampa Bay, and one of those being healthcare. So, Rob, where do the candidates stand when it comes to healthcare?
Yeah, it's a big question. There's a lot of confusion here, but the Tampa Bay Times came out with a few articles that compared the two candidates, and they broke it down in a really simple, easily understandable way. So there's no denying that Governor Rick Scott has been dead set against Obamacare. He actually ran on a push to repeal the Affordable Care Act, saying it was pushing healthcare costs up, but then 5 years ago he changed his mind, calling for Medicaid to be expanded under the health care law. Then in 2015, he changed his mind again, but he said that he is against cutting Social Security and Medicare. As for Bill Nelson, he's been a big supporter of Obamacare, and for years he's criticized Scott for not expanding Medicaid in Florida under the Affordable Care Act. But like Rick Scott, Nelson is also against any cuts to Social Security or Medicare.
And you know, another topic that's really widely searched, especially in our area too, Rob, is immigration. Kind of tell us where the candidates stand on something like that.
All right, so when Rick Scott first ran for governor 8 years ago, he took a strong stance on immigration, going against President Obama's executive order that protected young immigrants who came to the country as kids. But he's softened his stance since then. He now says he supports giving legal protections to those immigrants, but remains a big supporter of border security. As for Bill Nelson, he's called for immigration reform several times before, including increasing border security and granting visas to certain undocumented immigrants. But Bill Nelson largely opposes President Trump's push to remove the birthright citizenship from the children of immigrants.
Really good stuff there. Lastly, the topic of guns too, Rob. This is actually something that was lowly searched when it comes to the Google Trends topics.
Right.
But it's, I mean, considering Florida has dealt with the Pulse nightclub shooting, then we also had the Parkland shooting, all relatively close in time. Kind of tell us where the candidates stand on guns.
All right, so Aubrey, this is pretty fascinating because both candidates basically fall right along party lines when it comes to this issue. Take a listen.
I think we ought to focus on the problem. The problem is we have people that want to harm themselves or others, and I think we ought to take all weapons away from them. And that's what we did in the legislation I got passed this year within a little over 3 weeks right after Parkland happened.
We ought to pass a comprehensive background check, a universal and comprehensive background check like the one that I have voted on. And until we do that, we are going to continue to have the problems that we're having.
Both those comments were made during their one and only debate. They never had a follow-up debate to that after Hurricane Michael. And one of the things that politicians are going to need to be aware of right now, this election cycle here in Florida is the first time that survivors and people affected by the Parkland school shooting will be going out there and voting. A lot of those kids that were there at the school are now 18 years old. Those survivors mobilized their teen counterparts in other parts of the country as well. We saw that in a big way. So the results today will be something everyone is going to be watching for as well.
Absolutely. And then in about 20 minutes, we'll talk about the gubernatorial candidates and where they stand too. You don't want to miss that. Awesome. Thank you, Hillary. Now, earlier in the show, we were talking about the Senate race and the candidates and where they kind of stand on certain things. So now we're going to switch gears to the gubernatorial candidates. Rob, this race is getting national attention, rightfully so, for so many people. On Monday, I actually showed viewers this map showing the Google trending topics for the midterms. Really interesting.
The entire Bay Area there too. So the one thing that I noticed that is interesting in this particular situation is not a lot has changed, considering it's only been 5 days since Floridians could sign up and vote for health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. I'm not surprised to see that health care, the #1 topic in our area and a lot of regions of our state. Both Ron DeSantis and Andrew Gillum staying along party lines when it comes to health care.
Because if you lower the premiums, more people can afford it, and you'll get more people doing it. So and here's the promise that I make to voters here in Florida. If for some reason something changes on that individual market protections, the court does something, I will happily sign a bill to help folks with pre-existing conditions here in the state of Florida.
We deserve to expand Medicaid and offer access to health care for over 800,000 of the most medically needy people in our state.
Really interesting stuff there. Now, Rob, the second topic that voters are talking about right now is immigration. So kind of tell us where the candidates stay on that. It's a hot button topic.
Yeah, it certainly is. We looked at this, Aubrey, and during their debate last month, things, as you just saw, got pretty heated between the two when talking about the very topic of immigration.
That if we have a criminal illegal that serves a prison sentence and there's an ICE detainer on that individual so that we can get them in federal custody and send them home, Andrew doesn't want to, he won't commit to cooperating. I will cooperate. I will get that criminal out of our state and out of our country. And here's the thing. Why would you allow your dislike for the president to knowingly put communities at risk? To have mothers who may have their sons or daughters harmed by somebody? That is just wrong. We have to protect Floridians first. And that's what I'll do as governor.
We believe that we are a nation in a state of borders. We also believe that we're a nation in a state of values, where we don't separate babies, put them in cages to separate them from their mothers. Immigration and Border Control has an important job to do, and we ought to empower them to do that job, which is why we propose moving the agency inside of the Department of Justice.
All right, finally, when it comes to gun control, this topic was a huge topic in Florida, especially after the Parkland school shooting. It dominated the news cycle here for several weeks, and it really made national news.
Oh, easily. So it's safe to say that the candidates, when it comes to their positions, they're staying along party lines.
Yeah, left and right, red or blue, they pretty much stayed right where you think they would be. Take a listen.
When I took on the NRA, they sued me and drug me through court for 2 years, all because we had a city ordinance which said you could not shoot guns in city parks. When we win this race, it'll be simple. It's not a threat to the Second Amendment. If you want to own the power of God at your waist belt, you ought to have a background check.
I think the way to keep our community safe is obviously you got to work with law enforcement, not against law enforcement, and you need to identify those individuals who should not have access to firearms. The blanket ban on the restriction, that's going to get struck down in the courts. It's a constitutionally enumerated right. You always got to do it in a way that's precise.
And these debates at moments did get pretty heated.
Oh, easily.
According to the latest Quinnipiac poll right now, Andrew Gillum is leading in that race.
No surprise there. Speaking of polls, for those of you voting today, the polls open in less than 10 minutes. Nothing wrong with getting out there early to vote, right, Rob?
That's right.
I know.